bit of background, and as Mr. Laidlaw talked about, in general, the council chambers hasn't experienced much change in the last 50 years. And over the last couple of weeks, we've really heard about the heritage aspect of the council chamber, not only within the municipal hall, but also inside the council chamber. And that's really a testament to the quality and craftsmanship that was put into the original configuration to this chamber. However, that's presented us some challenges also I'll talk about now that we're looking to make some renovations. The implementation of webcasting is as per council direction and as identified in both the strategic plan and the financial plans this year. Prior to implementing webcasting, it was necessary for us to confirm the current configuration of the council chambers and that it was optimal for this new technology. Also for the interaction of council members and the interaction between council and the public. And earlier this fall, we undertook a reconfiguration pilot from the months of September through November. And the public commented that it was easier to speak to mayor and council together on top of a dais. It was also easier to see council from the back of the chamber room when we had a full house of multiple people here in attendance, and it provided a more modern layout. In general, the positive feedback from council and citizens regarding the new configuration. Some of the current challenges with the existing council chambers is the audio and presentation system is largely out of date. And over the course of the year, we've had challenges with the audio system, particularly these these microphones, where we've had periods of time where they weren't working and audience members couldn't actually hear part of the meeting discussion. The presentation material and system here is also a bit of a challenge, particularly when we have developers with architectural drawings and they're coming to present. Sometimes those drawings aren't easily viewed and presented on these types of TVs and screens. In addition, residents and the public coming with their presentation material, whether it's pictures or just even the words on the presentation material, aren't always legible. This leads to some confusion and discussion among either council or also the public around extra questions that they weren't clarified through the presentation material. The dais, as well as the podium, are both not accessible. Today, if we had somebody come to this podium with a wheelchair, it may be a bit awkward for them to come and speak to council and try to use one of those microphone systems. The chamber lighting in here is quite dim and is not also conducive to supporting webcasting. The desk size are not quite adequate to support new technology. Once we start overlaying monitors and power supply and also microphones, the real estate in some of these desks start to become limited. So when we start putting on papers on top of it, there's a bit of a challenge there in terms of the real estate and space remaining. It's not necessarily a challenge, but I point out that the podium is not consistent with the heritage of the room. It's a large black box and it was replaced with the original podium some time ago. But it really is a sort of an eyesore and not really conducive again to the heritage feel of the room. It also provides a visual obstruction between the audience, the public, and mayor and council. So why make this investment? Well, residents, business owners, and interested stakeholders don't always have the time or ability to attend council meetings due to a variety of circumstances, including the many demands that impact their lives. Providing live and archived webcasting allows citizens to easily watch council meetings from the comfort of their home, wherever they may be with their mobile devices. The archived videos provide them the flexibility to watch at their own convenience. It's for many of these reasons that municipalities have introduced live webcasting as a way to promote openness and transparency, improve citizen engagement, and provide greater access to decision-making processes. In addition, the changes to the reconfiguration to the council chambers is meant to improve interaction between council and the public, meet accessibility requirements, enhance presentation platform, and provide clear audio of the meeting, as well as revitalize the chamber. So the approach that the team undertook when we looked at what kind of improvements were needed, the first one was looking at a citizen-focused point of view, that the changes to the chambers needed to consider the citizen's perspective. And as well, the webcasting needed to be convenient and flexible. We also took a foundation approach to provide core services based on accepted and proven technology, as well as provide a turnkey solution that doesn't require high-level optimization or customization. And when we're considering the foundation approach, it was a holistic review of not just looking at the technology, but also the reconfiguration within the council chambers, and providing a foundation that can be built upon at later phases, whether it was technology or physical changes to the chamber. Meanwhile, taking a look at the heritage sensitivity, so having a lens of heritage consideration, preserving and replicating the heritage character wherever possible. The proposed improvements can be discussed in three distinctive elements of implementing live webcasting, rejuvenating the chambers, and improving the presentation and media management system. But largely, as I talked about, as providing a holistic and a foundation approach, they all have an interconnected relationship. Once you start discussing live webcasting in more detail, you start getting into discussions about layout, and then get into discussions about supporting technology and so on. They all have an interconnected relationship, and that's the foundation approach that we're recommending. When we took a look at what are some of the municipalities that are already performing webcasting, and there's already a large list of municipalities, all of the ones listed here, provide webcasting today, and many of those locations are on Vancouver Island. And I started to take a look at some of the locations in the Lower Mainland. And this is not by no means a full extent of all the locations that provide webcasting, but it's just a snapshot of a number of them. Took a look at some of them provide multiple cameras, some provide high resolution video, and some provide agendas synced. Actually, most of them provide agendas synced to webcasting. If we start to take a look at which are the municipalities that provide multiple cameras, you start to notice that many of them are the larger municipalities, such as Victoria, in this case Nanaimo, Campbell River, Comox, and Island all provide multiple cameras. But when you look at the Lower Mainland, many of them do. And the reasons for that is because of the larger chamber that they have and they undertake their council meetings at. When we start looking at some of the smaller municipalities and looking at their council meeting environment, it's usually a much smaller committee room, a smaller setting where you have a single maybe meeting table that mayor and council sit around. And in those type of settings, a single camera in a smaller room may not be the highest resolution video, works quite well, it still captures mayor and council. When we get into larger settings, the best practice, or what is typical, is a multiple camera approach that you can see in Victoria. An example where that's not necessarily the case is through the CRD, where they provide a single camera. And when you look, and if you ever watch the webcasting provided by the CRD, it can be quite difficult to understand who's speaking, let alone who's in the room. And for that reason, it becomes more of a podcast than it is a webcast. And my understanding is that they are looking at changing the current configuration. So the recommendations, and sort of just going back, the proposed recommendations for Saanich include multiple cameras, high resolution video, as well as syncing the agenda to the webcast material. The recommendations here, as I just talked about, multiple cameras, in this case providing 4 cameras, to have good presentation of mayor, council, staff, as well as the podium speakers. Streaming live video to the Saanich website, and the ability to view archive video and presentations that have been indexed to the agenda. Integrating the microphone, audio, and the presentation system, so the presentation system can also be displayed on the live webcast feed. Improving the lighting to support webcasting, and converting our lighting to energy-efficient LED. Providing on-site webcast production, as well as a trained operator to manage the video and sound system. Regarding the recommendations for the council chamber rejuvenation, recommending similar to the pilot that was in effect over this past fall, raising and providing an accessible platform for both mayor and council, providing heritage style millwork for both council and staff desks with built-in monitors, new microphones, and wiring for power, providing speakers podium with a sidearm to provide seated presentation as well as wheelchair access, removal of the unused floodlights that are above here, refinishing of the wood panel and the cedar paneling throughout the room, replacing of the flags and as well as the web pictures, and providing new desk chairs. This is a rendering from the architect that shows the general configuration of what the council chambers would look like. This is very similar to the pilot that was in place this past fall. The details of the finishing products aren't and haven't been discussed yet, so that's my caution when you're looking at this. There's still a lot more work to be done when we get into the details, and certainly there's been some input from the Heritage Foundation around this. The presentation and meeting management system, recommendation is to provide high-quality video systems, so replacing the TVs that are above you here, providing monitors for the built-in to the desk for mayor and council and staff, so that all present at the council meeting can view the presentation material clearly. Providing a meeting management system to assist in the setting of speakers queue and the control of the microphones. The timeline for this, should council approve this, council required and recommendations is that after that, we would look to finalize design through the holidays in early January, undertake a heritage review process, and then send out the design specs for tendering, so an open bid and competitive bid that allow the market to provide the best value for what we're trying to achieve. And then come back to council for a council tender award, and then construction through April and May with completion before June. So just in summary, the project was looked at first again as a focus on the citizen-focused point of view, and that was not just for the technology, but also from the physical changes to the council chamber. Looking at a foundation approach, so that we're considering that the technology, in addition to any of the physical changes, are things that can be built upon in later phases. We may not be implementing all of it at once, but there's future phases that can be built on. All while looking at the heritage lens and preservation, maintaining heritage where possible, and replicating it where it's not. With that said, that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, available to answer, and we also have a couple staff in the audience to answer.
Move the recommendation.
I'm going to recognize the speaker first. So, Councillor Dermott.
I'll second the recommendation.
I'd like to motivate a little bit first. It is a large amount of money, but it's a big thing we're bringing forward for the residents of Saanich and for future councils. And when I look at the initial budget was around $150,000 that we imagined the system might cost, that didn't talk to what we needed to do in the physical facility of the room. And one small parallel, I was involved several years ago with the refurbishment of the Prospect Lake Community Hall. And we started off with a consultant's estimate from two of $70,000. And then once we got into doing the implementation, to bring the kitchen up to scratch, we were no longer able to use domestic stoves. We had to go to a commercial stove, which instead of $750 times two, $1,500 was $13,000. That was interesting and a struggle. But then it took us $60,000 of electrical upgrades to be able to power that stove. So that's sort of how I'm looking at this. We did have an original budget, but to achieve all the objectives of preserving the heritage, powering up, our chamber is inadequately powered for the new technology. To marry the technology not just to the audio and visual feed, but to record capturing. It is a great deal of money, but when we look at the results that we'll be able to take forward as a council for the people of Saanich, I consider it a very worthwhile investment.
Councillor Dermott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I guess, Councillor Haynes, that was a pretty expensive stove. When I look back, I'm the one that brought the motion to council on webcasting several years ago, and I think it's absolutely something that we need to accomplish. Certainly the live casting is of value. I suspect in the long term the archival material is actually even more valuable. One that lets people look at the council meeting at their leisure, which is nice if they're working night shift or something like that and have an interest, they can look at it later. And perhaps even more importantly, when it comes to the time for them to make decisions at election time about council, they have this huge reference that they can refer to. Yes, we take minutes. Yes, there are audio tapes, but our minutes are not as descriptive of the whole event as actually seeing it. And audio tapes are equipment as such is difficult for members of the public to access. This would allow members of the public to look and say, okay, Councillor Dermott is saying he would do this or has done this. I can look back and see if Councillor Dermott is in fact accurate in what he's saying. And I think that's a huge value. We want to have people make the most informed choice they possibly can. And I think that kind of archival material provides at least that opportunity. So I very much support the concept. When I brought it forward, I hadn't anticipated the changes to the council chamber that from the rendering I've seen, or that is up there now, looks like a very progressive change. Brings the council chamber into the 21st century without destroying the heritage values that are here, in fact respecting them. I think that's a very good thing. I'm certainly going to support this, not because I necessarily agree with the costs, but these are only an estimate, and we will go out to tender. I would be surprised if some of the elements didn't come in cheaper than they are now. For example, 4 cameras, a control center and wiring. If you'd look to have broadcast quality television 10 years ago, you would have spent between $70,000 and $100,000 for a camera. There are cameras out now that provide a very, very high level, that are net workable, the whole thing. They cost between $2,000 and $3,000 US, and they are extremely good quality. And then, of course, it goes up from there. But you can achieve a remarkable level at a fairly low price. So I think that kind of thing may come down considerably. Same thing with a control center. There are software programs out there in the range of under $1,000 that allow you to control multiple cameras from a computer, a laptop, very easily and very effectively. So I suspect, at least I hope, and I believe that some of our estimates will come in lower, and we will benefit from that. Obviously, some of the physical changes in the council chamber are not going to come in lower. Those kinds of, anybody that's been in their house and done a home renovation knows that you seldom go below the estimate on that kind of thing. In the end, I think I agree with Councillor Haynes. It will be a very, very substantial improvement for people who work in this room, staff and council and the mayor, and also for the people who visit this room to give input. And beyond that, it will be the ease of access of information, a huge improvement for all the municipality, and I think that's worthwhile. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Workman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if we could put up the drawing of the proposal. Oh, there it is right there. Is that a new drawing? Have we seen this one before tonight?
No, sorry, through the mayor to Council Workman, this is, it's actually one that I received today, so it's an updated rendering.
Okay. The only question I still have about it, everything is balanced just beautifully. And we got that large, beautiful podium dead center right in front of the public. And also, we've got it curved in such a way that it looks like we've circled the wagon, so to speak, and the public is outside. And when I look at it, I just wonder if we haven't curved it too much. It's just a thought that I leave with you.
Yeah,
I think it may be the perspective of the camera.
yeah, through the mayor to Council Workman, that is the one caution to this type of rendering. You can see how the room is elongated, and so I think that the mayor is correct that it does provide an added feeling and that it's closer together than it is.
Okay. Going back to the podium, I guess I've seen it in other municipalities where they have the podium on one side. It doesn't make the room as balanced, but the public then has full view of council. Has there been any thought about putting it to one side?
Through the mayor and Council Workman, we did explore the idea of putting it to one side. I think one of the challenges for the person that's at the podium and speaking, you may not be able to see quite as easily the council members that are on that one side, because now they're in a row like this, and you're not going to be able to see the speaker because you're having to lean across them. So that was one of the challenges of potentially having a podium to the side.
Okay, but we've said it 10 times over, we want the public engaged, and all they see is the backside of the speaker. And I guess I just say, I'm not sure we got good balance on the two, and I throw that out. Coming back, we we talk about surpluses here, we're gonna take it out of operating surplus, and do we have any operating overruns this year? I'd be interested in knowing, and I ask that question because from my point, I'd almost like to see this in light of the whole budget for this year. In the back of my mind, there are some big costs coming up, and it'll just be a time of making choices. And I'm not sure we should put this size an item out right now before we see the rest of the picture. Just my thought. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Workman. Councillor Plant, did I see your hand up next?
I'll pass right now.
Okay, Councillor Sanders?
Thank you.
Then I'll probably speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly am supportive of webcasting. I think it's something we do need to do. I like it, the CRD, not necessarily the webcasting, that's fine for me. But I like the link towards our documents, and I think that is an excellent way to do the meeting. You don't need the paper and such. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's something we need to get up to date on. Where my concerns was for this presentation here is the lack of detail. I wouldn't have a house built without plans. I wouldn't have a house built with, or any renovation done where I didn't actually see the detail of what was happening. I think the price tag is too large, and I agree with Councillor Wortham on that. We need to look at this in the whole budget. But I'm concerned here that what is missing is, I know that there was a short presentation done to the Heritage Foundation last week. Their minutes were sent, but I couldn't open them, and we don't have a copy of their minutes. We don't have a copy of their comments. I was only there for a short time because we had a meeting following that, and I do know there was a great concern about the new configuration going out further into the audience. Then there was concern about the lectern. This is a lectern, by the way. It's not a podium. A podium is a raised speaking platform. This is a lectern. And there was that concern, those issues. So for me, there just isn't the detail here. As I say, I'm supportive of us having webcasting, but I'm transferring on to the fact about the physical facility, talking about what's going to happen here. We don't see the pictures. There are plans, and we would have liked that to be presented this evening so that we could all have had a comment. I'm also concerned about the timeline. In that timeline, it has that there will be a heritage review process, which I was pleased to see. However, that follows the finalized design, so that isn't an input. And so I think, one, the cost I find too high, and the other thing is I find that there's the detail lacking in this, even to the webcasting part, the detail of, I know in the plan there would be a desk up high for the videographer to be up in the corner, and we as a council haven't been privy to that. And I would like us to step back and have a look at all that before we make a decision, or how the floor is going to be raised. Our issues when we began with this, there were two things I recall what our purpose was to be have webcasting, so being more available for the public and interacting. And the other concern that has been raised in the last, well, I only didn't notice until election time, was the mayor sitting above council, and that we all be on the one level. Could we be all on the one level if we're down at all this level with the mayor coming down, or should we all go up? I mean, there's a discussion when you look at a lot of this cost, it's going to be involved in making the chamber more accessible because of the dais coming up. So I think there's a lot for me, there's a lot of information missing from this proposal at this time for me to be supportive. So I would like to go back and have that detail before we completely consider this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'd like to have a turn to speak, actually. I think maybe we might be looking towards a motion to postpone this, given the issues that we're hearing. For me, I've been a strong proponent of webcasting. As we saw in the slides, it's been in place in a number of other municipalities. I actually think it was North Sandwich that put it in first a number of years ago, but it still took a while for other municipalities to catch on. I don't think we're really late in doing this, and we want to do it right. But I think what I heard earlier was that it was a worthwhile investment. I think looking at the budget that's been presented so far, I would say that it's a worthwhile idea, but perhaps not very good value for taxpayers at the moment. Granted, this is a budget, and it could come in lower. In our experience here, I think we have to think how often that happens, and that's going to depend on how well this is defined before the RFP is defined and before it goes out. So I did do some digging on my own, and the most recent example of a council chamber renovation, to my knowledge, is Esquimalt. One of the issues I have with the budget here, and I'll just refer to Appendix A in the cost estimate, and the total cost for the council staff and desks and the raised platform totals $112,000. It really is a substantial sum of money just to raise the floor and put in some desks. The comments I heard earlier from Councillor Sanders about how to get the level right. In some installations, what they've done is they've simply raised the levels of the desks, and they've put a platform in behind the desks to lift us up to the level where we can be seen without having to raise the whole floor. There are a number of different ways of doing this. Going back to the operating costs, something that occurred to me this morning as I was going through these notes is the cost for temporary council meeting relocation at $15,000. And I guess an idea that occurred to me, and I'd like to ask our clerk, is what, given that we can pass a motion to have a meeting outside of the municipal boundary, and given that there have been joint council meetings before, is there anything that would prevent us from setting up shop at another municipality's council for a short-term basis on a night that they weren't using the council chamber so we could get our business done?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, there would be nothing to prevent council from passing that motion to allow the meetings of council to be conducted outside of the municipal boundary. We have been at this time exploring options of where we may be able to host the council financial plan, public hearing meetings during the time period of construction. And we have had discussions with the Capital Region District for their boardroom as well. So we are looking at those options.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Webcasting system infrastructure, estimated 4 cameras at $70,000. The cameras that were put in Esquimalt, roughly $5,800 each. That's a lot of way to go to get to $70,000. And there are a number of other examples I could get into at this point, but I don't think it's necessary. I'd look to council for some advice. I think a motion to postpone this to January so that we can take a closer look at this would be appropriate. Councillor Bryce.
I move that this item be postponed until early in the year.
Was someone second that? Seconded by Councillor Sanders. Councillor Bryce.
Not wanting to get into a fulsome debate on the postponement motion, but on the wisdom to postpone, there are times of the year when this chamber is less used, and certainly to have to incorporate budget meetings and such would be eliminated if we sought to do the construction in August, something like that, you know. So I think there's savings or some sort of, I guess, issues that can be dealt with there. In terms of postponing, and we'll all want to have some additional information, the one thing that hasn't been raised yet, and I certainly am concerned about, and that's the ongoing operating costs of $56,000 a year for the camera person, and I guess I would need to have more detail on whether that is triggered because of 4 cameras. Is it 1 camera or 4? What are the magnitudes of savings and ongoing operating costs? Because certainly capital, you can bite the bullet and do it once, but any ongoing incurred costs be felt by this chamber for a long time to come.
Next on my speaker list is Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the wisdom to postpone, I will be supporting the motion. For me, I guess what we'd be, the only reason I want to postpone is that I'd like to have some more information. I want to thank staff for putting this together. I appreciate the rendering and the information we've been given. I feel very uncomfortable with a $500,000 price tag for what was initially described as webcasting. I agree with the comments that have been made around it being nicer to have council on one level and the view from the audience, but I'd be looking to see an option A, B, and C in this, ways to reduce some of the cost. It seems like an extraordinary investment. I mean, this is really the cost of someone's home in order to make these renovations and provide webcasting. So I'm not convinced that that's a great return on investment. I think it looks lovely, but I'd like to see some other options.
Thank you. Next on my list is Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am very uncomfortable with the price tag right now, and I do need more detail, and that's why I'm going to support postponement. When I look at this rendering, I'm still not very happy about the placement of our staff. It looks like they're continuing with the arm or the horseshoe, and then I want to know how many rows that we will be eliminating, if any, from the audience. So there's more detail for me, and whether, like Councillor Murdoch just said, is there an option A, B, and C? Is there something, we're all trying to address bringing us up high to the level of mayor, but I know Victoria, the mayor's come down to the same level. So is there some sort of design element that we can look at around that, as opposed to bringing us all up? Maybe it's halfway, I don't know what it is, but I am concerned also about the ongoing cost of operation, and whether that would be a staff member that will be doing it, or whether it'll be a contract, and what that would actually look like over the long haul. And so those are some of the things that I do support the wisdom of this comment. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor German.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support the postponement motion for a couple of reasons. First of all, I agree that having more detailed